Hey everyone, welcome to the pilot episode of Deep Dive, the show where I bring a guest once a week and we just talk about one of the shows that we just fall in love with. Today we're going back to Scranton, Pennsylvania, and we're talking a little bit about The Office. And for my first guest, you know him from Northern Entertainment Group's show, The Spirit Slice. It's Dustyn. How you doing, Dustyn?
I'm awesome, Ben. How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm looking forward to talking about the show. I don't know about you.
I can talk office all day, every day. So I think you got me for the right episode.
Nice. So, what, I don't know about you, but what first got you into The Office?
Yeah, I remember being in college when like season 3 was on, and obviously that was right when it was getting hugely popular, and so I ended up watching a random episode. I really can't remember what with my college roommate who was really into it. I was like, okay, this show's pretty funny. I'm like, all right, I got to go back and watch season 1 and 2. So I went to like Walmart, bought the DVDs, and I remember in that first season, like the episode with basketball, where Michael Scott plays, and I immediately was like, this is like the funniest thing I've ever seen when he's doing a layup and he's yelling three. I mean, that's hilarious. So that episode just like sold me on the whole show. And really, since about mid-season 3, going into season 4, I was watching it live. So that was my intro into it. What about you?
I have the similar situation. Maybe it was season 3. I remember, no, I think it was season 2. I started watching it live. My brother brought it home from high school, and we all watched it as a family to get us into it, and we fell in love with it. The show is great. It has great characters. Season 1 was good. I think season 2 has a gem episodes, but I really think season 3 is when they found the footing. And season 3 on, it is like peak Office for me.
I agree with you. Yeah, season 2 has there's a couple. Season 2 starts strong. Like the first episode is the Dundee episode, which is just a spectacular start. Like you almost can watch the whole show and never watch the first season really, because the Dundee episode is so good. And then yeah, I agree with you. But yeah, season 3 to me to season about 6 is I think when The Office is at its all-time peak best of when it was the funniest, most concise, and like what it was doing. So yeah, I totally agree. I think personally season 4 is my favorite season. But yeah, so I mean we're about the same spot of what's the best.
Oh, honestly, I think season 4 has the best episode with Dinner Party.
The dinner party episode is just amazing. I mean, I still can't get over. And I literally, it's funny that we're talking about this because I was just talking about this the other day. And it will make me giggle every time is when Michael Scott buys the plasma TV and it's like this big, and then he's like, and it pushes right into the wall, and it doesn't push into the wall at all, and he stands and watches it. That is just still so funny. Every time I watch it, I'm like, this is like the most ludicrous thing I've ever seen.
And you can't talk the Dinner Party without talking about Jan and what a great character and what a great character arc she went through from really the beginning of the show to seeing how crazy she became in like the final season.
She is an unsung character in the show as Jan's character. For a couple seasons there, like you said, she starts as the hardcore mean boss, and then she ends as the crazy lady. Like I mean, season 4 also has the deposition in it too, where and I think that whole sequence is just so funny between him and Jan, and like just how bad Michael Scott is at being under pressure when he has to go in there and like kind of lie. And I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Everybody always talks about the main characters. We all remember them, but when it comes to like just a couple of the funniest moments and awkward moments in them couple seasons. Jan is just awesome.
I love the when they take out his diary in the deposition and start reading excerpts from it.
Yep.
It is when, and then I forget what part of the diary it is mine. They say something and then Tommy just laughs at it for a second.
Yep. It's
And
so good. I know, it's like you almost can't even like talk about the office like laughing as you're like saying it.
and I think that one of the most brilliant things about the show is the characters. Do you have a favorite character?
You know, my character changed. So I'm never one of the people, I don't know if it sounds cliche. I mean, we can all agree that Michael and Dwight are like two of the most ingenious television characters that have ever been put on TV. But I remember when I first started watching, I remember I really thought I was really into Ryan. I
Okay.
liked the whole concept of Ryan when he was just the little intern, and he had the weird relationship with Michael, and then he built his way up to being the person in the higher up, and Stanley was the other character that I always thought was funny because I liked that Stanley just didn't care ever. I love that. I love the fact that he never cared about his job, and he just slept, and he just was there to leave. Like, that was always like the funny thing is, I don't know. Sometimes we all get like that when we work, right? Like, we might like our jobs, where Stanley didn't, but where it's just like, I just want to show up and I want to leave. I don't want to deal with anything, and I always love that.
One of the best cold opens in the later seasons was the one, it was after Michael left, was the one where they were trying to get Stanley to, get him to break character or something, and he just kept in focus.
Yeah,
It was really great.
yeah.
And one of my favorite side characters, of course, is Kevin. How
Kevin.
funny is Kevin?
Kevin is great because if you run it, which you know this because the first couple seasons, Kevin's character is to play like the dumb guy in the office, right? Like who's very dry, who's very boring, but is also kind of interesting. And then I don't know what happens. Like it's probably about season 4, season 5. They just realize that there's so much more to the Kevin character, and he ends up like really. If you watch them last couple seasons without Michael, Kevin's character is like a main part of the comedy. But Kevin is so funny.
Yeah, everything from Kevin's famous chili
Yep.
is the one he does best as his
Yep.
slider uncle. I
I,
love the whole, in the season 4 finale when they introduced Holly
yep.
and they have the little back and forth.
Yep. Which is it's funny because like I know I don't know if you've seen, so Steve Carell has had some interviews where he kind of states like he doesn't know how much of The Office they could get away with in 2022, and when you rewatch some of it, overall it's pretty good. There's some parts here and there, but that is a funny but crazy gag to tell a new person that this guy is mentally challenged, and then to run with it for multiple episodes. Because it goes from the end of season 4 to early season 5 before Holly finds out that it was all a trick. And
Right.
when you almost rewatch it, I know, like, to me, it's still one of the most cringy things. Like, a lot of people always point to a couple cringe moments. I always think of that one. I'm like, this lady thought that this guy was a slow employee, and then she learned he wasn't. Yikes. But it's funny, though.
But, yeah, another cringe moment, you can say episode, was Diversity Day.
Yes.
Boy, talk about an episode I don't think we'll get green light today.
Well, didn't that episode, the diversity episode, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't that episode on some streaming platforms, it's pulled? Like, I'm pretty sure.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when The Office, I know it's edited on I know it's edited on Peacock. A couple parts are out of it because I mean
Okay.
it's I. I always love the line in that one of which my wife's a huge Office fan. We've just watched it nonstop for years. But the one where Pam's like, "All right," they're holding the cards up to their foreheads, to see what Pam's like. All right, based off no preconceived notions and no stereotypes, you're usually a bad driver. And Dwight says Asian, but he goes, "Oh my God, am I a woman?" And it's such a funny line. My wife loves that line all the time because it's just so funny. Even though they're doing races, he thinks he's a woman, which is good. But yeah, that episode it is parts of it is, it's cringy.
But yeah, talk about a character that changed a lot. Kelly was in that episode, but you wouldn't recognize her. She was so quiet and subdued to where she ended up. Probably one of the prettiest characters of all of them, right?
Yeah, it is interesting, like them side characters in the first, even season two, Kelly. I know she's a writer on the show and all, but even season two, she's still that Kelly from season one. And I'm sure if you've ever, I don't know if you ever listened to the Office Ladies podcast, which I do once in a while, but they were in the first season, even after the second season, they still thought it was getting canceled. Like they just didn't see the show becoming a hit. So when it came to some of them side characters like Kevin and Kelly and maybe even a little bit of Angela, but she had a little bit more to do. I just don't think the writers were like, well, why put all the time and effort into these characters if this show runs two seasons?
Right, right. But again, they have the 40-year-old version, you think, because I thought I read somewhere or heard somewhere that movie saved the show.
Yeah, yeah, because didn't okay. I'm trying to remember. I know I'd heard it, but like I think the first season was in the bag, the 6 episodes,
Mhm.
and it sat there. Well, the pilot sat for like a year, the first episode, and then they got called to do the six. And when they did the six, apparently it was like, how actors are. They do shows. Sometimes the shows never air. They forget they ever did it. And then there was like a whole nother year span in there where 6 months to a year where they were like, oh, we didn't hear anything from them. We thought it was dead in the water. And then, yeah, Steve Carell became a, overnight sensation. So that had to have helped.
And talking about the actors and characters, we always had a lot of great guest characters. One of them, guest actors, I should say. People forget, season one, a very young Amy Adams was
Yeah,
on it.
it's so random, right? Like Amy Adams, a future like two-time Academy Award winner, is the purse girl in
Yeah,
the first season. I don't think she has credit with a name. I don't know. But yeah, that's well. And then what the Diversity Day one? It's what's he had the show on Comedy Central. Larry Wilmore. He's the Diversity Day coach. And that's again because it's first season. It's a pilot season. There's nothing saying that any of this goes anywhere.
right.
But as I said, I'm glad it did.
Well, I mean, okay, everybody loves Jim and Pam. What are your thoughts about their relationship from where it started to where it ultimately ends up in the final season?
Isn't it funny how this is like, and I'm sure you asked this. I was thinking about asking you that same question today, Ben, because it's so funny now that The Office is 10 years old now from ending or however long, which is crazy. Um, how that's like the main topic is like, do people like the Jim and Pam story arc? I feel bad because then people are in like against Pam now because they look back because they watched the episode so many times. I mean, I was in that camp of everybody just loved the cuteness of the meat. But it is hard once you finally put them together. Okay, Well, now what? But at some point they had to do that. It was 4 seasons in. Like, I mean, I don't know what else they were supposed to do, but I thought that they covered it pretty clever. Building them up, having kids. They involved their families a lot, and I actually wasn't even against the final season of it either, where they showed like their relationship struggles. I don't know. I'm not saying I had the same relationship struggles, but I've been with my same wife for 13 years now, and stuff like that happens where you're like, oh my gosh, this just gets crazy. So I don't know. I wasn't totally against it. What about you?
I love the him and Pam stuff. And I put it right up there with like Chandler and Monica from Friends.
Yeah.
But I really say this, that final season, that character, Jim pissed me off. Man, they made choices for him that Jim in earlier seasons wouldn't have done to, to put conflict in their relationship. I get it, relationships have conflict, but it really feels like they were creating conflict just to have conflict. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right too, and I think that it that I don't know about it enough, but it sure seemed like that last season of The Office. It was possible to me that, and maybe or somebody else out there knows better than I do, but it was possible to me that that season was never going to happen. I mean, it felt very like after season 8, which has its own issues, that because of that, that's an easy way to cut it out. So it almost felt like at points in season 9 when they have 20 some episodes to do. To me, it's felt like they weren't prepared. Like they just weren't expecting a whole season. And there's a lot of season 9 to me that feels like filler. There's a lot of filler in season 9, and I felt like the conflict was filler.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, and I think I should have double checked this earlier. But you know that whole storyline of Annie going away for a few episodes in season 9?
Yep.
I think that was because he was making Hangover Part 3.
Yeah, that sounds right. I was gonna say I know he had to leave for a hangover. Well, that was the other thing of season 9 that was an issue, is some of these actors were now famous. You know,
Right.
Andy got huge off the hangover. You know, John Krasinski's starting to land movie roles. Steve Carell is now a major superstar. Granted, he's not in the season, that's why he left, but that's a big part. There was difficulties there, but yeah, that is definitely why. And it's amazing because I think a lot of people get on Andy in the last seasons too, for having like such a weird character arc and kind of being. There's parts actually the most frustrated I get. I agree with you with the gym thing, but the most frustrated I ever got is at the end of season 8 with Andy when Robert California like pushes him out, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, none of that makes any sense. And he's trying to get his job back. Andy's so unbearable in those handful of episodes. That was like the most like even when he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get my comeuppance against Nellie and Robert," I'm like, "Ugh, I don't know. You're kind of a prick too. I don't know what to tell you. I don't. I don't know."
Well, okay. Steve Carell left at the end of season 7.
Yep.
We had a few more episodes of season 7 without him. And then season 8 comes and Andy's the new manager.
Yep.
What do you think about that? Would you have picked Andy?
It seemed like the logical choice. I guess going into season 8, I thought Andy was going to be the choice. I remember because I always think of it every single time, but I remember sitting down with my wife to watch season 8. And I remember when they show Andy, she literally like gasps because she was happy that Andy got the job. Like I'll never forget that. That's a part I always think about when I rewatch the show. Is my wife had this reaction right here, like she was so happy that Andy got it. I mean, it even by the time that show happened, we all knew. I mean, I knew just by news reports that James Spader was going to play a huge role in it. Um, but Andy seemed like the only real choice, I think. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think, to be honest, I know this isn't going to happen. I would have loved it if Chip Carey was a new manager.
Yeah, you're
They,
really for the stars on that one.
what?
Said you're really reaching for the stars on that one.
I know, but they had him in the finale. They
Yeah.
had him cover for a few episodes.
Yep.
Why couldn't they bring him carryover? But, oh, Ray Romano would have been interesting too.
The Ray Romano part. That I defend. One thing I always defend. People really don't like those 4 episodes that follow when Michael leaves. I'm actually huge. I think they're all really good. I think the Will Ferrell one by himself is so stupid. It's so funny. He does a fake juggling routine where
Yes,
he's bouncing them off Phyllis's. How could you not like that? To me, is like I don't need anything else in the episode. He literally said he doesn't have juggling balls, so he just faked a routine. That's funny. The episode after is Dwight shooting the ground because he becomes manager, which is hilarious because it's all about how they want to overthrow Dwight. And then the last 2 is picking in the, interviewing Ray Romano and Will Arnett and all these people. Those are 4 really funny episodes that people really don't like. And I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think my favorite interview for the manager job in that finale is the wait, it was the one for Andy because I love to see Gabe going crazy against him.
I know. Gabe, talk about another great side character. Gabe is so funny. I love the way they just start just trashing Gabe towards the end when he loses all of his power. I mean, it is so funny. Again, this just shows my nerdom, but there's that part where Gabe gets mad. He's like, "Shut up about the sun! Shut up about the sun!" And my wife and I quote that all the time when it's super sunny out. We're and somebody says something about the sun, you're like, "Shut up about the sun!" Because yeah, I agree with you. I think the Andy interview is so funny. And then Dwight comes in as the French guy who's all burned, which is it's so funny. Hey, I'll interview you right now. Okay. Have you ever shot a gun in the office? Well, I don't know. That's a difficult one. See, it's not. And then she just walks away from him. I'm like, because this is ridiculous. I don't know. I defend the second half, the quote unquote bad seasons a lot more than most people do.
Yeah, me too. In fact, I have to tell you, not the episode where Michael leaves, the one before it, with the last studies, and that song that they sing to him. That song gets me every single time I watch it.
It does. Yeah, that's maybe the most wholesome moment of the show. It just feels so good.
And I have to wonder, I want to know your opinion on this. I don't think he's been clear about it going in.
I've heard both ways. I've heard that he didn't. The one that I believe is I heard he didn't know, but they have to obviously shoot it more than once.
Right.
The take they chose wasn't the first one, so he still has some sort of emotion to it. But well, the one that I think of too, the other one that I think Steve Carell has talked about was, do you know his last scene was the scene with him and Jim? That's Steve Carell's. The last scene he shoots was the Jim saying goodbye.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently, that is I think from what I remember hearing, right, that was one take, or however they did it was all super real, and they didn't have a ton scripted, and they kind of figured out where they needed to go, and that's the reason why I feel so they're actually crying at each other, because it was Steve Carell's last shoot. Once that scene was done, he was done. So
Isn't that scene after the Michael and Pam scene at the airport?
yep, yeah, the very last scene shot was that scene, because I think there's a secret clip, or there's a clip out there somewhere of Michael coming out of the little room, and he gets an ovation, because I think that might be on the last that season 7 DVDs. I have all of them. I don't own any almost physical media, but I have them all on DVDs. And if you're looking for some cool random stuff, them DVDs have some cool random stuff on them. Granted, I'm sure they're on YouTube at this point, but
Do they have audio commentaries on the
Depending
episode?
depends on the episode. I'd say probably 5 to 6 episodes, maybe even less, have audio commentary. Usually with the writers, so like Ryan, BJ Novak, and Mindy Kaling, and like Toby, they'll be on them. Maybe I don't really know if there's any with like Dwight or anybody. It's usually the writers.
We should talk about Tommy. Why don't you feelings about Tommy?
Toby's the great. That is another thing of why Michael's just like this. Maybe we can lump this in because I was going to ask you: isn't Michael like the least likable character that's just so likable?
Yes. Yes.
I
I
mean,
mean,
he's so rude. He's so condescending. He can be just downright mean at times. But there's something about him that you just can't not love about the guy. I mean, my God, he's so mean to Toby. I mean, just because he's the HR guy and we see it as hilarious that he is just outright mean to this guy.
but okay, to be fair, what Michael means, everyone is not to be meaner to Tommy.
That's true. It is. I love the part in season 8 when Andy takes over and Toby's like, well, I can't do that, Andy. Now that you told me that you were going to do it, I would have to report you. Andy's like, now I know why Michael hated you so much. And, like, those are good parts. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. One of my favorite Tommy moments is, I think it was in season 4, Night Out, when Michael and Dwight go to the city and all the office people are locked in the gate. And Tommy, they're all sitting in the room, and Tommy accidentally puts his hand on Pam's knee,
Yeah.
and then he says, yeah, I think now is a good time for me to say, I'm going to Costa Rica.
Yep.
And, and he runs out from some of the fence. That is the perfect Tommy moment
It's
for me.
so good because it just shows how awkward Toby is. And I love the very, I like the fact that what they did with the Toby being in love with Pam thing. Like how they never hit it really hard, but it was always randomly there. Like every once in a while, Toby would say a weird comment or get on like this thing about Pam, and everybody would be like, "Okay, this is weird. This is very weird." Well, that's the one thing I like about the show is all the characters. We kind of like, but like, there's a reason why everybody, me and you, like the show is because we like all the characters. Like,
Yep.
there's not like a character you don't like, and so, but yet they're all flawed in their own ways, like really badly, but yet they're all likable.
What what are you feeling about now in season 8?
About what?
Now, the
Oh,
English woman.
Nelly. She's a tough. She's that's a tough part of that season. It really is. Season 8. I think season 8 has really good highs and really bad lows. Um, I said it earlier. I think the last couple episodes of season 8 are like kind of the worst stretch of episodes that I think the show has. But I think the couple episodes while they're in Tallahassee, I think are the best episodes of that season. And I don't think Nellie's that rough in those scenes because she's still kind of a side character.
Right.
But there's some good stuff like the Test the Store episode. I think where they have the stupid pyramid store. I'm like that. There's some funny stuff in that. Like I know I'm off tracking, but like when the bloggers are coming in and Dwight goes, we should talk to Erin. This is Fatty Gruesome, and she goes, my name's Patty Grossman because she's overweight. So Dwight calls her Fatty Gruesome. Like that is so hilarious and so bad. But no, I don't know. I don't think Nelly. I think Nelly turns out all right in the last season. Because what else are they supposed to do? But I guess if any character, whatever. But then I have to ask you. So season 8's the Robert California season. What's the feelings of Ben on Robert California?
You know what? I kind of like him. I don't know if I'm in the minority, but he cracks me up. There's something about that character and it's so weird and yet so funny to me. How about you?
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I remember watching it like in real time, and I remember not appreciating it. Maybe it was because I still had that feeling of, oh no, Michael, this is completely different. But I've rewatched that season multiple times now. But like as I rewatched it, the more funny I thought he was. Like there is some funny stuff that comes out of Robert California's mouth that is just like the one I use all the time is I think it's the first episode where Andy's like just trying to butter Robert California up, and he's like talking about any like just nothing, and Robert goes, "Oh, I'm afraid you've lost my interest." And he just says it like, who says that to someone? And now I do that to my friends all the time when they start talking about something. I'm just going, oh, I'm afraid you've lost my interest. And it's a funny line, and it's so mean at the same time, but it's a good line.
I wish we got some Robert California with Michael Scott. I wish there was some overlap there.
I agree. I think that's probably one of the few things if I could somehow figure out how it could happen. Like we got the Michael Scott Ricky Gervais cold open, where they just met on the elevator, and that was awesome. Like just that feeling of like if only we could have figured out I mean it wouldn't have had to been anything. 30 seconds of what those two would do if they were together, but it is what it is. But yeah, I agree.
What are your thoughts about the CFO David Wallace?
Is he he's the nicest character in the whole show. That's why everybody loves him. He's the only person that sees that this whole branch is completely out of their goddamn minds. That's why I love him. He just like sits, like he has so many. Like I love the part where Michael Scott's like setting up his party. And he goes, "Hey David, if we hired Cirque du Soleil under contract, would that mess with any of the year-end tax stuff?" And there's this long pause, and then David, no, like because he's like that moment's so good because David's so exhausted from listening to crazy Michael Scott things that he's just like, oh God, not again, please. But he can't say anything because Michael's good at his job. So he's forced to deal with all of this.
David gets so tired that in the middle of season 5 he hires somebody. He hires Charles Minor, played by Idris Elba.
Right. And again, another section of the show I do not like. Yeah, I know. I feel like that's the one thing I'm an outlier on. I don't like that 5 or 6 episode span of the Michael Scott Paper Company. I don't. I don't know why, but it's like probably outside of the end of season 8, it's probably my second least favorite portion of the show. Is that little bit? My wife loves it. She loves that part, but it's not. I don't like Idris Elba's character that much. I don't like I couldn't suspend my disbelief enough that Michael Scott was like stealing people's clients. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it just I don't know. What I mean, but yeah, Idris Elba's crazy that he's in it. I think that every time I see it. But
I didn't know. I'm kind of I do not like that much, but I like it. But I love the final episode. I think it's called Brooke. When when Michael Scott Paper Company gets brought back into the Mifflin, and they're all in that meeting, right? And slowly during that meeting, Charles realizes Dwight's not as smart as he is, but he's super crazy. And then like a light switch is going on.
yeah.
And like, oh, you're batshit crazy.
It's so true. I love it. I mean, it's just like it's so funny because Dwight's like, I have a good apiarist. We could release bees into the office, and just Charles's face is just like, what the hell's wrong with you? I think he says that under his breath. Like, yeah, you're right. That's a good part. That is a good that is a good climax to that part, though. is that scene. I'll give you that. I'm not a big fan of the lead up, but it's good to see Charles get his comeuppance, and it's funny to see Dwight like crash and burn like hard in that part. Talking about another scene, just because we're talking about the cringe of The Office, is the part of the cringe is me. A lot of people say like the cringe, like we talk dinner party, like Scott's Tots is another one everybody talks about. That's see, I didn't get the cringe in Scotch Tots as much as everybody else did. I mean, it's cringy, but one of the parts I find cringiest is the last episode of season 5 when they're doing the volleyball match, and Michael and Holly are doing that really bad skit.
Yeah.
Every time they show it, I am just like, this is so uncomfortable because it's so bad and it's so stupid that's a moment that always gets me where I'm just like, oh, this is rough. Do you have any other cringe moments? I always love Office cringe moments because there's so many of them.
I'm sure there's some here. I mean, well, the one where Pam walks in and Michael saves him.
Yeah, that's so funny. I did. You told me to come in. No, I didn't, Pam, and he totally did, which is funny because it's Michael for you. Yeah, that's funny too. The other one that gets me that I don't know why it never comes up to other people, but is when Michael's dating Pam's mom and he finds out how old she is at the birthday party.
Yeah.
I can't. That's might be my worst one. I can't do it because I remember watching it when it aired, and I remember thinking, "Oh my God, he's gonna break up with her." He found out how old she was, like, because they, right away they tell you Michael's uncomfortable with this, her age.
You see him doing the math.
Yeah, and he fucks the math up too. Like he completely fucks the math up, which is funny. But yeah, the whole time you're like, "Oh my God, Ben, he's gonna do it. He's gonna break up with her on her birthday in front of Pam, who just accepted it because of her age." And oh, it's so uncomfortable.
I like that part, but the part that keeps it for me is in the first episode where you find out he's dating her mom, and Pam makes finds out.
Yeah,
And you see her face slowly in, I don't want to disgust, but you know what I mean,
yeah,
like, in disbelief.
yeah. It just it was or like when Jim finds out too is so good. He goes, "I'm dating Pam's mom." He's like, "No, you're not." He's like, "Oh, I am." He's like, "What kind of car does she drive?" Blue Prius. Son of a bitch. Like Jim knows it immediately. He's like, "Oh no." Like just his reaction is just like, "Oh, please no. Of anything, of anybody, please not be Michael Scott." But that's a good little section there.
And then when I think it was in that episode where Dwight bugs Jim's office with the wooden mallet.
Oh, yeah, it's so good. Oh, there's a good segue. So, what's some of your favorite Jim pranks on Dwight?
Uh, they're okay. They're the obvious, the one where Jim puts all his stuff in the vending machine. That's a good one.
That's a great one.
There's a one where Jim puts his desk in the bathroom.
Yep,
That's a good one.
good one.
There's one in the later season. I always forget what episode it is. Asian Jim.
Asian Jim. Yes, that is still one of the best ones. I'm so glad you brought up Asian Jim. So clever, so funny. They just did a an interview with, like, I don't remember where I read it, but somebody did an interview with Randall Park, the guy who plays Asian Jim, and he
Yeah.
said that for the first little while when the episode aired, because again, we as fans overthink what actors think. To him it was just a day on the set of a show, and he got paid and he left. So he told the story about how people would start yelling Asian Jim at him, and he had no idea why. And he's like, "What the hell is happening?" People are like, "Why are they saying that to me? Why? Like, that's like racist. Why would they call me that?" And it took a little while, like after finally he brought it up to someone. And they like, you were on The Office, and he completely forgot that he ever shot that. So he had no recollection. He's like, I don't remember even. He's like, and then they told me, and I'm like, oh my god, that's right. And then ever since then, he's found it funny. But yeah, that was just recently that he said all that, which I find funny because that's a great one. I also love the I love the one where Jim is like sending him CIA stuff, and at the end of he'll like a helicopter's going to pick him up on the roof, and he gets a text, abort mission, destroy phone, and he just takes his phone and just throws it. I remember the first time I saw that, I hit the floor. I was like, that's so funny that he just chucked his phone off the building.
And then there's the one, I think it's season 7, Garage Show. I love the magic beans stuff.
That's a good one. The ending is so funny when Jim pulls out the big plants and he does the heel kick at the end.
Oh my god, that heel kick.
It's so good.
I knew that. And they're walking around someday. And
Another funny part, just because we're talking like of Jim, and this isn't a prank, but when I think it's the last season, right? When what is it? Jim, Dwight, and Aaron have to go and move the boxes, and they just get so tired, and they put all the grease on the floor to move all the boxes in the warehouse. And like Andy comes down and is really mad about it, and so is Daryl because they got grease all over the floor. And Jim has to like shrug his shoulders and realize what a terrible idea this whole thing was. And I'm like, I always love that part. It's so good because rarely does Jim look like the dummy, like very rarely is Jim, and then but occasionally he is, and that's a great scene because it almost feels like he feels like how Dwight feels all the time, where he just gets caught doing something just super stupid. But yeah, so I got one more big one. So going off pranks, what's your favorite Creed moment?
oh god. The problem with Creed is it's so random and sporadic you forget them, but when they happen, it's so good.
So good.
I think it's the one where Holly arrives, and she's like, nice meeting you, blah, blah, blah. What is it you do here? And then he's like, and then he cuts him into a face interview. He's like, what is with this woman? I mean, questions. Nobody needs to ask, what do I do here?
Yeah.
What do I do here? Call him the experts or something. I don't know what he is.
Oh, you're right. No, that's one of my favorite too because that's just so good. Because in the second season, there's the episode of where the Mickey Mouse character gets the penis having sex print on the paper. That's when they tell you what Creed does. Like they tell you he's quality assurance on that episode. So it's funny when you watch it later and you're like, what the hell does Creed do there? Like you're thinking, but I'm like, but if you watch the show, you know exactly what he does. He is quality assurance. That's his job. But then as the show goes on, you realize that, oh yeah, Creed probably doesn't really do anything all day. Yeah. And doesn't do shit other than say weird things.
Matt can't drink one. I remember one of my favorites. And the one where Jim dresses up as Dwight and mocks and mimics him.
That's probably, if you're ranking moments of The Office, that has to be in the top 10 at all times. Because it's so good. And then when Dwight does it back.
Yeah.
Hi, Karen, you want to have sexual relations because you're my girlfriend? Like, oh, yeah, Jim, quick comment. When he looks at the camera, I'm like, I just die at that. Every time.
We've been talking Quickman about Karen and Roy. What are your thoughts about those characters?
Of that season 3 section of characters. I don't know. It's Karen's an interesting one because it does throw the wrinkle into the Jim Pam relationship, which probably needed at the time, especially considering at that point Pam was already broken up with Roy and all that stuff. So I thought it was good. I mean, Karen was just a side character that was going to happen for a season, so there was no major investment needed in Karen. It was more of how it was going to affect Jim and Pam. So I mean, I thought it actually set up better for the season 5 episode where they actually go, where Michael and Pam go up to Utica and see Karen, and she's I love it's pregnant. Is that Jim's? And they're like, what? This has been like years. Like, why would it be Jim's? I actually almost think it set up that one episode almost better than the rest. But yeah, them few episodes in the first part of season 3 are pretty good, I think, when they're figuring out the merger and stuff.
Well, originally, and forgive me if I'm wrong, I think Punk Hit Rick was supposed to be an Office spin-off originally. And the Anne Dickinson character was supposed to be Karen, but
Yeah,
then they retooling it, obviously, and decided against that.
right.
But I wonder, in an alternate timeline, I wonder if that would have been any good or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like my wife's in like my I like Parks and Rec, but my wife doesn't like Parks and Rec at all because
Yeah,
she can't get over the fact that it's The Office, just in a different setting with different characters. She
okay.
can't get over it. And I'm like, yeah, well, that was the point. Like it was supposed to be the same shtick with maybe a little connection, and then they decided that it was. I mean, to me, the shows are super different. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't really. The characters are all so different that I don't really see a through line there. But
I like to think it's all one shared universe somewhere. And we're in the good place too. There's
yeah.
those shows, live in one pocket universe, and they all.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine? That'd be the greatest thing ever. I want to see Dwight and Ron Swanson in the same room so bad. That's
I
all.
want to. I want to hear. Have you seen a good place? Yeah, have you seen that? I recommend it because it is the same creator, Michael Shaw.
Yep.
It's President Bell, Ted Danson, and it takes place after somebody dies. I'm
Oh,
sure
well.
it happens.
Yeah, I've only heard good things about that show too. So did you? Speaking of spinoffs, in that last season when they did that episode of The Farm with Dwight and his family and like his brother and sister, because I'm sure you know that that was a pilot
Yeah,
for The Farm, like Dwight's spinoff show. Like I like again, that's another episode. Maybe it works better when you've watched it more than once, but that would have been pretty interesting.
it would have been interesting, but if that happened, I don't think we would have gone to Silicon Valley. Because the guy who plays Dwight's brother played
Right,
character in Silicon Valley.
right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know if Dwight. I know we as fans of shows love certain characters, and we all love Dwight, but I don't know if Dwight's the lead character of a show.
He, I'm going to get the information I don't care. He's like the Joey from Friends. They're,
Yes,
they're great ensemble characters. They can't be their own show.
right. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that one. I just don't think that Dwight could carry his own show. He's too not. The reason why Michael's tolerable and we like him is because you can still like relate to him.
Right.
Dwight's not the easiest person to relate to because he's an over the top television character. Like so, yeah. I guess the other question. So I see. Oh, geez, we talk fast. And it's already flying through. So what's like hard to say? Like, what are your favorite couple episodes? What do you got? What are the couple that just click right in?
The dinner party.
Yep. Great one.
Uh, the I don't think there's a third one. The Christmas episode in season 2.
Yep. That's my number one. Is the Christmas episode. If I'm ever showing somebody The Office who's never seen it, it is the Christmas episode in season 2.
The injury. And Michael burns his foot.
Yep. Yes. That is such a funny. Everything about that is so funny. Oh, it's so uncomfortable. He brings the guy. who runs the building in the wheelchair in
Oh,
to talk about and then he goes, well, I would have been here sooner, but some idiot parked in the handicap spot, and it cuts right to Michael. And he's like, well, again, which is so funny. He puts in the handicap spot because he burned his foot on his George Foreman grill.
and then I would be remiss if I didn't say, of course I love Jim and Pam's wedding. Of course I love the delivery.
Yeah.
Man, you're right. Seasons 3 to 6 pick office. Not a bad episode in the month, and I love pretty much everything with them. Any, and we right down here, any final thoughts about the office?
Jeez. No, I told you this when you kind of reached out. I've watched The Office pretty much until I just had my recent child, my second one. Me and my wife watched it every single night to go to bed for I would say 7 years.
Oh
Like,
wow.
yeah, it was pretty gross. It even got to the point where like we would randomly change what we would watch. Like maybe throw on Parks and Rec, maybe throw on, whatever just to go to sleep at. Throw on a movie. And it doesn't matter whenever we did it. Within a week, it was, oh, let's just throw the office back on. It's easier. To the point where, yeah, I mean, and I've done the math in my head. I remember because, and again, our room where I live has really bad internet in the second half of my house, so we have a Blu-ray player in there because I can't stream anything. So I watch the DVDs, and which is sad to say. Yeah, that is literally all it's in this drawer is just all the Office DVDs, and I just rotate them in and out as we watch. And I remember we were doing that before the last season aired, or the last couple seasons, because I was buying the DVDs so I could have them so we could watch them. And so, I mean, when was that? 2012, 13, somewhere in there. So yeah, it's been a gross thing that I've just watched them over and over and over again. And no, I am not on the bandwagon that it should ever come back. That's how I will end it. Anybody who wants a reunion show, all of it, no, just leave it alone. Just enjoy what it was.
So you wouldn't want like a reboot with a new cast of characters?
If it's a full reboot, I wouldn't be against it.
Okay.
I don't want anything to do with this crew. Like that's where I would be at. Just I'm I always like because again, I mean, just because we talk Parks and Rec, that last season of Parks and Rec that was 100% not supposed to happen, but the fans wanted it to, is really bad.
Oh,
And
really?
I didn't like it. I guess maybe that's just me. But I'm like, it could have ended where it was, where it moved 3 years in advance, and you just never saw the characters again. But I don't know. I don't know if they would ever. I wonder how that would work if they ever tried to just do a reboot with a whole new set of characters in a new location. That'd be a tough one.
Yeah, when I said it, as I was saying it, I can't see them doing it, but I don't know. We don't see it ever.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, you watch enough TV and movies out there, Ben. At some point, NBC might do it.
What if they had Michael Scott being the CEO somewhere? You don't see him every episode, but you see him like how you saw David Wallace.
Right.
Him checking in on the office every now and then. Would you be open to that?
I would see. I would think the only yes, and I think that's the only way they could do it is if Michael was in some way involved, which is the one reason why I don't think it would ever happen because I think Steve
Right.
Carell is pretty content with what he did. I know I've heard. I know there's always rumors. Like I know there was one that had Dwight in a spinoff or something, and that just doesn't work. Like you have to have Michael. I think.
Me, I just remembered. Did you see, I want to say it was a long time before that, when Steve Carell hosted SNL.
I usually watch SNL, so I'm sure I did.
And they had, in the monologue, they
Yeah.
had Jenna Fisher pop up, they had Ed Helms,
Yes.
they had, who played Kelly? Not Kelly,
Yeah,
I don't remember her name, but yeah, it was fun in the moment.
Yeah, and I think that stuff's fine. I like the one-offs and a little maybe stuff like that on SNL or stuff. I'm okay with all of that, but I think it's good. I know everybody didn't get exactly what they wanted, but I mean that last episode, you got Steve there, like I mean, or Michael in the last episode of the season. He came to Dwight's wedding and told he's happy, he's fine.
I think the Office series finale is one of the best comedy finales. The out is so hard to pull off, especially in comedies. My favorite comedy of all time is Seinfeld. We all
Yeah,
know how that ended.
yep. Yeah, I agree. That's a good way to end because I agree with you. The Office season finale is very good. I like the fact that they didn't overplay the Steve Carell part. He
Yeah.
just showed up to the wedding, had a couple quick moments because I think in an interview, he even said he didn't want to take away from what they all sat there for two more seasons and did. And I
Mhm.
love the fact that they pushed out all the secondary and side characters to have that one last moment in the office, and everybody got their little moments. And I'm like, it's and like I liked it all played into what the characters were. Like Phyllis, I think Phyllis's part where Stanley makes her as the bird, like the little bobblehead, is like an adorable part because her and Stanley have always been best friends, and then Stanley moved, and even though he's mean to her, but she still loves him. So like though I thought it was really good. It didn't need to be too over the top, and I thought it was good. I agree with you on that.
Uh, well, we almost had an hour. We better wrap up. Or else we can talk about this all day.
It's true.
Dustin, real good everyone find you.
Yep, you can find me Dustin Buke on Twitter, on Instagram. Usually I'm complaining about movies, and as Soda will tell you, complaining about wrestling all the time too. And you can catch me on the Squared Slice on the Northern Entertainment Network every Wednesday. It's 9:30 Central, so do your math on whenever it airs for wherever you are, since I never know how any of that works. I Google it every time, so that's where you can find me. What about you, Ben?
Oh, thanks. You can find me. Well, you can find me right here on my new YouTube channel, the Multiverse of Geekdom. With deep dive, this is good. I'm going to continue with this. With basic picks, where I pick out my box office predictions of few other stuff. I'm also on the Northern Entertainment Group on Northern Countdown and Rewind Tape. And yeah, you find me at my Twitter, Ben_Raider. And I'll see everyone next time to talk about another show. Have a good one.